Hey everyone, welcome back to UJXanti. In this series, we try to understand whether Bitcoin's current rally resembles more with 2019 rally or it resembles more with 2020-2021 rally. These two rallies had many differences, the bear market rally of 2019 and the parabolic rally of 2020-2021. And we discussed those differences in different parts of this series. And in today's part, we are going to discuss USDT dominance. By the way, you can find the links to the prior parts in the description of this video. Now let's jump to the chart of USDT dominance. And here we are going to use the linear chart, not logarithmic. And here we can see something very interesting. And in this video, we are going to speak about technical analysis more. We are not going to discuss macroeconomic stuff. So this has nothing to do with macroeconomic outlook. This is more related to technical analysis. And I got to know about this trend line from multiple sources, namely from Benjamin Cohen's analysis. So credit goes to those channels, including Benjamin Cohen, for finding this trend line. And you will see that this trend line marked local tops for Bitcoin every time. Really, there was no instance when Bitcoin had a local top and this trend line didn't mark it. Let's start. We see that this trend line connects all of the points from the chart of USDT dominance. And this chart just shows the market cap of USDT divided by the total market cap of all crypto assets. We see that currently USDT dominance sits at close to 5.4%, meaning that 5.4% of all cryptocurrencies are stored in USDT, in USDT's market cap now. And we see that USDT dominance had higher lows and higher highs in the last couple of years. Actually, since its inception. And now let's overlay the chart of Bitcoin so that we can see the local tops. All right, now let's zoom in for each local top. And we see that, USDT had almost zero market cap prior to 2018. And its dominance, was 0 point something percent prior to 2018. However, in 2017, it started to pick up. And after that, it only had higher highs and higher lows. All right, so now this is the first instance. We are going to mark this. As we can see from the Bitcoin chart, BTC/USD, this was the cycle high. It was in December of 2017. And we see that this trend line showed and marked the cycle high for Bitcoin. As we see, USDT dominance hit this trend line back in 2017, December of 2017. Then we move forward, and then we had this rally, which we call bear market rally of 2019. Here, actually, if we go daily, we will see that the local top was in the week of 24 of June. We didn't have the highest weekly close in that week. However, if we go daily, we had the highest daily close in that week. But no matter of that, 1 week is not a big difference. we see that again, USDT dominance chart, this trend line in USDT dominance chart, again showed that this was a local top for Bitcoin because, again, USDT dominance went down and it found support in this trend line. And after that, it just bounced off. Here we had another instance of local top, however, we didn't touch it. So this was not a rally, actually. It was a very short-term price action, less than 60%. This was the rally prior to recession, or we call it like rally into the recession. However, we can see that, again, it was very close to the trend line. However, we didn't find a clear support there. Then, of course, we had two local highs. At first, we had close to 65K. And we can see that actually here it was a like distribution phase, not a clear high. However, we had a couple of weeks of 60 to 65K. It was a distribution phase in the first half of March 2021. And here we can see something similar in the USDT dominance trend line. We see that it found support multiple times and it bounced off every time. So again, it marked the local high, local top for Bitcoin. And then we had the cycle highs in November of 2021. And in contrast to this high, which was in the first half of 2021, this was not a distribution. So we had only 1 week of price action, and it was not similar to this local top. Here we had a distribution pattern, which we saw in this trend line. It found multiple supports. However, here we had only a couple of weeks, only 1 or 2 weeks, when Bitcoin just hit 69K and then started to crush. And we see something similar in the chart of USDT dominance. So USDT dominance went down and it found only one support, one weekly support, we can say. And after that, it bounced off very quickly. Interestingly, we had a local top a couple of months ago when Bitcoin hit 74K, a new all-time high. Although we don't know whether we are going to see something more, we are going to see new all-time highs in the upcoming months. However, we can accept that it was a local high because since then, Bitcoin corrected for almost 30%. Now it's a little bit up. It's close to 25%. However, a few days ago, it was 29%. And we are still in the correction phase. And Bitcoin at least needs to break 61K zone in order to be back in 61 to 71K zone that it was in the prior months. Bitcoin is still under the key zone of 61K. Remember that 61K acted as support multiple times for Bitcoin. And it will not be surprising if it becomes a resistance zone now because we are under it. It will not be surprising if Bitcoin rallies into 61K. However, it becomes a resistance zone and it's not very easy to break it to the upside. Coming back to this cycle, we see that here in March, Bitcoin had a new all-time high, which was 74K. And after that, Bitcoin started a correction phase and we are down for more than 25%. And here, interestingly, this trend line again marked that this is going to be a local top for Bitcoin. at least in the short term. This has nothing to do with the cycle top. As we saw in 2019, if we go back, here is the 2019 scenario. This was not the cycle top. This was just a local top. And we had something in the first half of 2021. Although it was very close to the cycle top, we had 65K in the first half of 2021, and then in November we had 69K. However, these didn't mark the cycle top. It means that we can have multiple tops, multiple local tops, and then we can have the cycle top after that. And the rationale for this, the explanation why this happens, why this trend line works, is quite logical. When the rally is already exhausted, meaning that there are more sellers than buyers, and it can happen for many reasons, for example, geopolitical risks or macroeconomic conditions, or maybe miners start to sell to cover their expenses. All this can result in more sellers than buyers for Bitcoin and other cryptos as well. And when there are more sellers than buyers, those sellers usually sell Bitcoin into USDT. And when they sell Bitcoin more than there are buyers, Bitcoin's price in USD terms will go down and it will mark a local top. And we saw that, for example, in 2019. The rally faded away. People sold their Bitcoin into USDT. That's why USDT dominance, it was sitting at 1.15% when the rally was in its top, close to 14K. However, it doubled in the upcoming months when Bitcoin USD went down. So the logic is simple. People sell Bitcoin, they sell it and buy USDT. That's why USDT dominance goes up and Bitcoin's price goes down, marking a local top. And actually, we can also, let's get rid of the drawings. Let's also hide the chart of Bitcoin. So this trend line indicated and marked every single local top since 2017. There were no exceptions. For every single local top, we had a support of USDT dominance in this trend line. And we can do something similar to find the local bottoms for Bitcoin. We just need to draw another trend line. And this is going to be the upper bound for USDT dominance. The picture is not as clear as for local tops. However, we can get some insights from this chart, from this trend line as well. Let's bring back Bitcoin's chart. Even in 2017, it indicated a local bottom. Here, this part is 30% correction in Bitcoin bull run, which is very classic, something that we have right now, close to 30% correction. And we see that USDT dominance found resistance in this trend line. If we move on, this is the next instance in late 2018. Actually, let's draw lines. It will be easier to see. We had our cycle lows for the prior cycle, for the last cycle. Bitcoin traded close to 3K, and it was the cycle low for Bitcoin. And again, we had a clear weekly close in this trend line. This trend line acted as resistance for USDT dominance. If we move forward, here we have another local bottom, which happened during the recession of the pandemic. As we can see here, we had multiple weeks of resistance in this trend line. However, we didn't have a lot of weekly closes above this resistance. We only had one weekly close, and it was the week of 18 of May in 2020. All the other weeks didn't have weekly closes. So there were many weeks, as we can see, but no closes. Again, this acted as resistance. This trend line acted as resistance for USDT dominance, indicating that we have a local bottom for Bitcoin. And indeed, it was the case. Bitcoin traded close to 14K in July of 2019. And a few months later, in 2020, after the recession of the pandemic, Bitcoin traded close to $3,800. Indeed, it was a local bottom and great time to buy Bitcoin. Moving forward, we see that here USDT dominance went higher than the trend line. And it will happen multiple times. We will see this again. That's the reason that I said that the picture is not as clear as for local highs. Because there are some instances when USDT dominance went higher than the trend line. But it indeed marked another 30% dip correction during a bull run. Not the worst time to buy Bitcoin after all. Let's get rid of this. Then we had the 2021 summer lull. Bitcoin price plummeted from 64K to 30K, 29K. And again, we see that for multiple weeks, USDT dominance found resistance at this trend line. And we only had one weekly close higher than the trend line, and it was only a few percentage points. Not a big deal. We had a couple of weeks, but not closes, only one weekly close, higher than the resistance, higher than this trend line. And it again marked, if we pick the weekly close, it was precisely the time to buy. That was the local bottom for Bitcoin. And weekly close was, 31, 32K. However, we had a couple of days below 30K. When we come to the last few years, the picture is less clear because we see that USDT dominance went higher than this trend line and it found support there multiple times. Instead of finding resistance, it found support. Indicating that all this period was a good time to buy. Of course, the picture is less clear because prior to this, we had precise locations, weeks, when we could understand where Bitcoin local bottom is. For example, in 2021, it was the case. It was also the case during the COVID recession. It was also the case during the cycle lows of 2018. But when we come to the current environment, to the current cycle, in this bear market, we had more than a year when USDT dominance was higher than this trend line, indicating that this period was great time to buy, kind of local bottom. But it was not a couple of weeks. It was not even a couple of months. It was more than a year. However, after that, we see that USDT dominance plummeted and it went down to 4%. And it again marked the local high, the local top for Bitcoin. It was 74K back in March. It is possible, and some people will say it is likely, that in the upcoming months we will see new all-time highs for Bitcoin. However, we cannot argue the fact that 74K was a local top. And another thing to note is that this doesn't mean that USDT dominance is now headed to, let's say, 8% somewhere to the upper trend line. No, it doesn't mean that if USDT dominance bounced off its lower trend line, which marks the local tops, it is now headed to the upper trend line, which let's say marks the local bottoms or some good times to buy Bitcoin. No, it can change its direction anytime, and we can have another rally. And I guess it's even more likely. It's more likely that USDT dominance will not go all the way up to, let's say, 8% or 9%, somewhere to the upper trend line to find a resistance. No, I believe that it's more likely that USDT dominance will change the direction when Bitcoin is ready for another rally. Maybe it's in 3 months, maybe it's in 6 months, no one knows. But when Bitcoin USD goes up, this chart will go down, indicating that USDT dominance goes down. People sell their USDT to buy Bitcoin. And another important thing is that even though this trend line worked very accurately in the last 5 years, since its inception, we can say, because USDT was born in late 2017. And after that, it worked, the lower trend line worked perfectly. We had clear supports, no violations, and every single support marked Bitcoin local tops. If you just followed this trend line and you didn't follow any news or anything, you would do much better than anyone else, than the average investors. However, we should note that these trend lines, when they are diagonal, not horizontal, they will not last forever. One day, they will just break. However, until now, it works, and it worked this year as well, marking the local top of 74K for Bitcoin in March. These trend lines, as you can see, if we go forward for a couple of years or even decades, actually, let's start with just years, you will see if we continue, they are diagonal. It means that they rise in value over time. So, for example, even if we go a little bit more, let's actually go to monthly so it's easier to work with this. As you can see, if we just go to, let's say, somewhere to 2054, USDT dominance sits at 22.2% in 30 years. That's the problem of diagonal trend lines. It means that USDT dominance should always rise, should always have higher lows and higher highs. However, we know that it's not realistic. It's not realistic that USDT dominance will be, let's say, 22%. Or if we continue this, you get the logic. If we go to, let's say, 22nd century, it will be, let's say, close to 42%. This is not realistic. I mean, we will break this trend line before that. It's for sure. However, we are yet to do that. And until it breaks, it still works, and it works perfectly. At least the lower trend line, which marks the local tops. The trend line that marks the local bottoms is not perfect. There are some violations, and the picture is not very clear because, as we saw here in the last 2 years in the bear market of Bitcoin, it was violated because USDT dominance went higher than this trend line, and then it found support, multiple supports in this trend line. We didn't have a clear signal of a local bottom. That's why it's not perfect. However, the lower trend line worked perfectly. Yes, this trend line will eventually break because its logic is not going to work for decades. USDT dominance will not go to 50% in a couple of decades. It's not likely. However, it merits to view this chart and this trend line because it had 100% accuracy in the prior cycles in identifying local tops for Bitcoin. So from the perspective of TA, technical analysis, it's wise to look at this trend line. And it will not be prudent to view this trend line in separation, in isolation. It's better to view this trend line in conjunction with other indicators that mark or hint a local top. That's why we just use this with other indicators, not alone, because its logic is going to be broken in the upcoming years or decades. It's guaranteed to break. However, it still works. That's why we just view it, and we view it in conjunction with other indicators. And coming back to the question that we started with, let's get rid of the drawings first. We've got a lot of things in the screen. Now it's better. Let's just have the trend line, the lower trend line that marks the local tops. And yeah, now we have monthly charts. So coming back to the question that we started the video with, whether the current rally of Bitcoin resembles more with 2019 rally or with 2020-2021 rally. We see that in 2019, when Bitcoin rallied and Bitcoin hit close to 14K in the summer of 2019, USDT dominance went down and it found support in this trend line. It was close to 1%, and it indicated that it was a local top for Bitcoin. Moving to the next rally, 2020-2021 parabolic rally, we see that there were two instances of support found in this trend line. However, in the first phase, which happened in the first half of 2021, we see that there were multiple. Actually, we saw in the weekly chart, but we see the same in the monthly chart. We had distribution phase for Bitcoin. Here, it's the 65K local top for Bitcoin, the first half of 2021, only this part. And for those couple of months, we had many supports, many weekly supports in this trend line, indicating that it was a local top for Bitcoin. After a few months, when Bitcoin had its cycle top, 69K, it was not a distribution phase. It was a sharp rally, and after that, bear market started. And that's why we didn't have multiple weekly and monthly supports at this trend line. However, we had, again, a clear support of USDT dominance in this trend line, indicating that 69K was the local top for Bitcoin's rally back in 2021, November of 2021. And when we come to the current rally that we are in, 74K was hit in March of this year. This trend line again was the support for USDT dominance, and it was a clear support, both monthly and weekly. If we go to weekly, you will see that again, it was a clear support, no violation. And again, it marked the local top for Bitcoin. So if we want to give the answer to the question of this video, is Bitcoin in 2019 or 2021 rally? The answer seems that all these three rallies already had local tops. In 2019, we had a local top and it was marked with USDT dominance, finding its support in this trend line. In 2020-2021 rally, we had two instances of support marking its local tops. The first one was 65K, the second one 69K cycle high. And we had the same thing a couple of months ago in March. We had a clear support indicating that it was the local top for Bitcoin rally. We might have new all-time highs in a few months, however, it was a local top because since then Bitcoin corrected for 25%. So this was the material that I wanted to share with you today. I really find this trend line very fascinating because it perfectly predicted Bitcoin local tops since 2017. We had 6 instances when USDT dominance found its support in this trend line, and every single time that was the time to sell Bitcoin because it was the local top of Bitcoin rally. And in 2017 and in November of 2021, those instances were cycle tops, cycle highs. Eventually it will break. However, until it breaks, it might be prudent to view this as an indicator that shows us or hints us the local tops for Bitcoin rallies because recently it triggered and it worked. If you found this video informative and interesting, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.